The poor puppy was trapped in the car in the hot dog days. The scorching sun and high temperature made it cry, and its vision gradually became blurred. What's more terrible is that the owner of the car didn't know anything. Just when the dog was about to be suffocated to death, the car window was suddenly smashed by a hammer. Fresh air finally rushed in. Suddenly, the dog saw a warm face and then fainted. When it woke up again, it saw a little boy looking at it excitedly. It turned out that it was saved by a passing mother and son when it was dying. The grateful dog kissed the boy's face intimately, and the boy saw such a cute little guy and immediately said that he must adopt him. But the father refused to agree after learning about it, because he thought it was troublesome to raise a dog and Ethan must have just been in a momentary mood. It won't take long before you get bored. The disappointed Ethan silently thought in his heart that if his father refused to agree, he would take the dog and travel around the world. Fortunately, after his mother's efforts to persuade him, his father finally agreed. Ethan was ecstatic. The next day, accompanied by his mother, he customized a special dog tag for the dog. On one side of the tag was the dog's name Bailey, and on the other side was the name of the little master Ethan. From then on, the man and the dog began to live a life of companionship. They laughed and played in the garden during the day, and hid in the quilt to secretly read comics together at night. Bailey knew its status in the family, and knew that the three of them loved it very much, but except for the big cat at home, for some reason, it was always full of hostility towards it. Meaning, happy time always passes quietly without notice. Bailey grew up wagging his tail and turning in circles. As usual, his father would drive the family out for a ride every weekend. This time they came to his grandmother's house for a visit. Because his grandmother lives on a farm, there are many chickens, ducks, cows, and sheep, which is simply Bailey's paradise. Therefore, as soon as he jumped out of the car, Bailey released his active nature and chased the little hen at home. When Bailey was tired of playing, he went home to drink a few sips of water, and then continued to run wildly in the yard. However, for a dog, Bailey's favorite is the manure on the grass. As long as he sees it, he must roll up to express his joy. However, the human world is not as simple as dogs. They can think and worries, so it is difficult to experience pure happiness. Especially Ethan's father is always unhappy because of work problems. He even complains at the dinner table, and Ethan will escape every time, because as a teenager he wants to help but can't, so he can only force himself not to listen, not to see, not to feel. Fortunately, Bailey smelled his low mood and found a shrunken football from the warehouse, and pulled him to release his bad mood. Sure enough, Ethan quickly forgot his troubles and had a lot of fun playing with Bailey on the vast grass. At this time, the depressed father also came out to breathe fresh air, and Ethan immediately wanted to make him happy after seeing him, so he and Bailey staged a unique high altitude. In the ball-catching game, the moment Ethan threw the ball, Bailey used his lower limbs to sprint towards the back of Ethan, who was kneeling. He then jumped and caught the football accurately, and then landed steadily. Because the whole process was smooth and beautiful, his father couldn't help but smile and praise him, but happy times are always so short. After the holiday, Ethan went to school, and his father and mother also went to work, leaving Bailey alone. He was lonely at home, and could only find food by himself when he was hungry, and sleep on the dining table when he was bored. Suddenly, Bailey remembered that there was a cat at home, so he took the initiative to provoke it. But the cat didn't like it, so the cat and the dog started a chase in the house. When Ethan got out of school, when he got home, the whole room was in disarray, especially his father's office, which was littered with documents. Seeing this, Ethan hurried to tidy up, but he was still seen by his father, who had just gotten off work. His father, who could no longer bear it, grabbed Bailey's neck and came to Ethan to teach him who was the real boss. Helplessly, Ethan could only pack up while telling Bailey that he was the boss, and Bailey was at most a dog boss. Unexpectedly, as soon as he said this, Bailey excitedly roared at him. It seemed to like the title of dog boss very much, but just when Ethan was trying to get in touch with the dog boss, his father urged him to hurry up because the boss was coming to the house tonight. Being a guest. In order to leave a good impression on the leader, the father took out the commemorative gold coin that he had treasured for a long time and prepared to give it as a gift to the other party. Ethan was curious after seeing it, so after his father left, Ethan took out a coin and played with it in his hand. As a result, the coin accidentally fell into Bailey's mouth and was swallowed as food. Seeing this, Ethan immediately opened the dog's mouth and wanted it to spit it out quickly, but at this moment, the doorbell suddenly rang and his father's leader arrived as scheduled, and Ethan was about to face big trouble. As the dinner time was halfway through, The leader suggested to look at the commemorative gold coins after the meal, and specifically asked to see the one swallowed by Bailey. Panicked, Ethan immediately asked his father to leave the table and took Bailey to the outdoors. Ethan begged it to pull out the coin quickly. Seeing Ethan sobbing, Bailey cooperated and found a hidden place. Then he defecated as required. Ethan rushed over to check and found what he wanted. Unfortunately, when he returned to the room, his father had already taken out the box of coins. Just waiting to open it for the leader to see, in order to prevent the matter from being exposed, Ethan had an idea and shouted that there was a mouse under the table. Then he took advantage of the chaos to put the coin back into the box. But just after Ethan solved the problem, a bigger trouble appeared. Because Bailey was too active, his father wanted to catch it and stop it from running around. As a result, he accidentally knocked the leader's wife onto the table. The dinner that was carefully prepared fell into chaos because of this sudden situation. The promotion and salary increase that his father wanted was completely shattered like a bubble, and Bailey, the culprit, was locked up in a dark utility room. However, when it was late at night, it successfully escaped through a small window and then sneaked into Ethan's bedroom. The reason why it did this was because it smelled Ethan's sadness and felt Ethan's loneliness. So Bailey tried his best to accompany Ethan. The next day, Ethan and Bailey made their father happy by playing difficult actions, and this successfully obtained his father's forgiveness. But time is something that catches people off guard after all. Only in the blink of an eye, Ethan grew up to be a handsome boy and became a star member of the school football team. But his father was completely unemployed and stayed at home all day, depressed, and showed indifference to his son's outstanding father. Unable to bear the depressing atmosphere at home, Ethan would take Bailey out to play every weekend. One day, they came to an amusement park. At first, Bailey ran around excitedly, but suddenly he smelled a smell from Ethan that he had never seen before. Although he didn't know it was the smell of hormones, Bailey still followed Ethan's gaze, ran behind a girl, and then dived into her skirt. Looking at Han, who was frightened, Ethan quickly stepped forward to apologize. It was the dog that did it, not him. Finally, Hannah was amused by Ethan's apology. After all, what bad intentions could a cute dog have? The two of them became friends, to express apology and also out of selfishness. Ethan invited Hannah to ride the roller coaster, but when it was over, Ethan felt dizzy and even knocked over the roadside sausage stand. The 28 sausages that fell all went into Bailey's stomach. Perhaps because he ate too much, Bailey couldn't help farting in the car when Ethan sent Hannah home. But even if the dog farts were stinky, it couldn't cover up the constant grudges between Ethan and Hannah. Sweetness is constantly released. Since then, the original man and dog have become a couple and a single dog. But Bailey likes Hannah's joining because Hannah always has an attractive biscuit aroma. It just doesn't understand one thing. Ethan keeps trying to lick some food out of Hannah's mouth, even though there is nothing in it. Just when Ethan was enjoying the sweetness of love, his parents were on the verge of a breakup. His father, who had lost his job, drank all day and even sometimes touched his mother. That night, Ethan saw his father drinking again. He wanted to be a peacemaker and mediate as usual, but his father suddenly pushed his mother to the ground and was furious. Ethan started fighting with his father. The family also fell apart with this farce. Finally, his father chose to leave them, and the cat left with him, even though he saw Ethan and his mother bury it in the garden. But Bailey didn't know what death was, and thought it was a kitten playing hide-and-seek with it, so he excitedly dug it out of the soil and brought it to his mother. Although his family was frustrated, Ethan made a breakthrough in his studies. With his excellent football talent, he successfully got an admission letter from the university. To celebrate, Ethan and his classmates came to the bar, but they happened to meet his drunk father. Although there was no conflict between the two, his father was sad. After leaving, Ethan was insulted by his classmates. It turned out that Ethan's excellence had long aroused the jealousy of his classmates, but no one had ever caught him before. Now that he has an alcoholic father, the jealous people naturally couldn't help but come over to mock him. At first, Ethan didn't want to pay attention, but the yellow-haired man kept talking more and more outrageous, and even started to attack his mother and Hannah. Ethan couldn't bear it anymore, and punched the other party immediately, but he didn't know that it was this impulsive behavior that ruined his happiness for most of his life. Bailey, who was sleeping soundly at night, suddenly woke up. When he went downstairs to check the situation, he found that it was the yellow-haired man who had provoked Ethan not long ago, who was throwing lit firecrackers through the crack of the door. Although Bailey was in time after driving away the yellow-haired man, a raging fire broke out in the room. Bailey quickly rushed into the fire and barked to wake up Ethan, who then woke up his sleeping mother. But the fire had already reached the second floor, and they could only escape through the window. In a hurry, Ethan made a rope out of the bedsheet and first sent his mother downstairs safely, and then let Bailey down. But when Bailey landed, the rope fell from Ethan's hand. As the fire was getting bigger and bigger, it was too late to make a rope, so Ethan could only jump down from the second floor. Unfortunately, when he landed, Ethan was hit on the right leg by the burning stick. Seeing this, his mother immediately took him to the hospital, and Bailey watched the ambulance gradually go away. I thought it was going to be abandoned, so he ran after it, shouting. But not long after he started, he found the arsonist hiding behind a tree. The angry Bailey rushed up without saying a word, and then threw the culprit to the ground. When the police caught up, the frightened Huang Mao confessed everything before being interrogated. A few days later, Ethan was discharged from the hospital and went to his grandmother's house to recuperate. Although he was not seriously injured, he could no longer play football due to a comminuted fracture of his lower leg, and therefore lost the qualification to be recommended to university. The sudden blow made Ethan frustrated, and he lost interest in everything. He was locked in the room every day and no longer played with Bailey. The bored Bailey could only find the little donkey on the farm to kill time. Hannah came to visit Ethan that day. Unexpectedly, Ethan, who was hit hard, directly proposed to break up in order not to drag down his girlfriend. Hannah was heartbroken after hearing this. Bailey wanted to comfort and keep Ethan. But how could a broken heart be healed instantly? So Hannah finally left. After a while, Ethan, who had become more mobile, was admitted to an agricultural university. On the day he was about to leave his hometown to study, Ethan hugged Bailey and said goodbye. But even so, when the car gradually went away, Bailey still chased after it. It ran across the grass and crossed the road while holding the football in its mouth, passing through the golden wheat field, and finally in Etha. N also saw it and jumped to the co-pilot seat. Originally, Bailey thought that this would keep Ethan, but he could not keep the person who wanted to leave. Although he did not understand what parting was, Bailey knew that a dog's mission was to stay with its owner. But now that Ethan had left, Bailey felt that its dog life seemed to have lost its meaning. It no longer liked to play football or play with the donkey, but was alone by the lake, waiting for its doting owner to come back. Until this day, the grandmother found it lying quietly, without eating a single dog food. After waiting for a checkup at the hospital, she found that its kidneys were rapidly failing, and it would not live for a few days. However, Bailey, lying on the examination table, did not know what had happened. He just felt confused. It had no strength and could no longer make everyone happy. In its last moments, it seemed to hear Ethan's voice. When it opened its eyes, it saw the familiar face. It turned out that after Bailey was diagnosed with the disease, his grandfather called Ethan, and Ethan finally came to see Bailey for the last time before he stopped breathing. Bailey left this world, but he did not completely die. When he woke up again, he was reincarnated as a German Shepherd. He was very happy at first, but the next second, he found that his eggs had disappeared. In the second reincarnation, he became a police dog serving the law enforcement department. Although the work was hard, it was simple and direct. He only needed to follow the instructions of his owner, search and confirm, and then find the eggs in the police station. The team accepted the glorious tribute, but what it didn't understand was that although it had done well, the owner never smiled. Not only that, when it was at home, it could also feel the sadness and loneliness emanating from the owner. However, whenever it wanted to go to bed to accompany in comfort, it was always ruthlessly rejected. The ignorant Bailey didn't know why, but only knew that the owner often looked at a photo and lost his mind. It turned out that the owner had a beloved wife, but now they are separated forever. Some people may find it difficult to open their dusty hearts and give love after losing their loved ones. Little did they know that indulging in the sad past would ignore the warmth around them. Until they were separated again, it was too late to regret it. The police team suddenly received a call that day. A 12-year-old girl was robbed. The owner took Bailey to search for the girl after receiving the task, and Bailey quickly found the robber's trace through the smell of the girl's clothes. However, facing the police's approach, the robber panicked and threw the girl directly into the reservoir dam. Seeing the girl fall into the turbulent water, Bailey jumped in without thinking. In the river, it risked being washed away and successfully swam to the girl's side. Then it bit the girl's clothes and tried to drag her back to the shore. However, the turbulent water and the girl's weight made Bailey swim very hard. Fortunately, the girl was successfully rescued with Bailey's persistence. However, at this time, Bailey saw that the owner was in danger, so he ignored the rescue. Bailey was exhausted and rushed to the robber who was about to shoot in time. Although he finally saved his master, He fell in a pool of blood because of a gunshot wound in the abdomen. Seeing his master crying, Bailey felt sad. But now he wanted to have a good rest. Although his life in this life was also very short, Bailey felt extremely honored because he saved many innocent people's lives in one mission after another. Accompanied by a dazzling light, Bailey ushered in his third life. This time he became a short-legged, cute corgi. His owner was a kind college girl who not only doted on him, but also took him everywhere. But he knew that his master was lonely, so he wanted to circle and wag his tail to make his master happy, like in previous lives. But he didn't expect that he had no tail at all in this life. However, it was this funny action that made the depressed owner smile happily again. However, heart disease needs to be treated with heart medicine. Temporary happiness can only treat the symptoms, but not the root cause. It turned out that the owner had always longed for sweet love, but she was a complete homebody who stayed at home all day and didn't want to go out. Not only that, she often ordered all kinds of delicious food. As a result, she not only got obesity, but also fed Bailey with high blood lipids. In desperation, she could only follow the doctor's advice and take Bailey to exercise outdoors. However, Bailey, who was used to lying flat, didn't want to move at all. No matter how the owner urged him, he just lay down on the lawn like a mess. Suddenly, he smelled a special smell. Bailey got up and saw a big black dog coming towards him. Looking at the other party's tall and strong physique, Bailey immediately fell in love with the dog. He wanted to pursue the big dog that didn't match his body shape at all, but was ruthlessly rejected. He thought he would continue to live a single life, but he didn't expect that the owner of the big black dog was the black guy who had chatted up Bailey's owner at school. The encounter brought the two lonely hearts together successfully. Soon after, the two people and two dogs formed a new family and soon welcomed 3 new members. As the days passed, the new members gradually grew up, and Bailey began to run away because the children always treated him as a toy and dressed him in various clothes and accessories. At first, Bailey tried to struggle, but in order to prevent Dahe from experiencing the same experience, he finally decided to bear the humiliation and take on everything. But for some reason, Dahe's condition was getting worse day by day, until one day he was taken out by his owner and never came back. Soon after, Bailey also began to become listless. He had experienced this feeling many times, so when death really came, he was no longer confused or panicked, and he had his owner by his side. Bailey felt that he had lived a really good life in this life, so he had no regrets. However, he was not so lucky in the next life. Although the mistress liked him very much and brought him home from the dog market, the man didn't like dogs at all, so Bailey had been tied in the yard since he was a few months old. There was not even a shelter from the wind and rain. In the hot summer and cold winter, Bailey died little by little. Growing up, it was never untied and had no chance to go out to play. Until one day, a policeman came to the door. Bailey thought it was taken to another place to search for something like in the second life, but the policeman just walked around and left alone. Then there was a quarrel in the room, and then the male owner came out and untied the iron chain on Bailey's neck for the first time. It turned out that the police came to remind them that they could not keep dogs in the area. The female owner had no choice but to ask her boyfriend to send Bailey to a better family. But her boyfriend cruelly abandoned Bailey on a cold and dark road hundreds of kilometers away from home. Watching the male owner walk away mercilessly, Bailey, shivering in the cold wind, did not move as usual. Just chase after it, because it doesn't want to go back to that home without any warmth. Bailey became a stray dog with no one to love him. One day, it wandered to a park and saw other dogs in the park playing happily with their owners. The warm memories of the past came to its mind again. Suddenly, it smelled a familiar biscuit aroma on a white dog and its owner, which was an indelible mark no matter how many lives it went through. But time had passed so long that it didn't dare to hold too much hope, so it continued its wandering. However, fate was so magical. When it crossed the busy road, crossed the clear stream in the mountains, and rushed out of a golden wheat field, it came to the long-lost farm and saw the little donkey that used to play with it, just when it guessed that Eth. When Bailey was wondering if Bailey would be here too, the old Ethan appeared in front of him. Bailey flew over excitedly and licked Ethan's face crazily. Although Ethan was a little surprised by the dog's enthusiasm, he could not recognize Bailey, who had completely changed. He just kindly took out some food and hoped that Bailey would go home quickly after eating. However, how could Bailey leave after so many hardships? Ethan didn't understand his thoughts at all and even sent him to the animal shelter. Watching the person he missed gradually go away, Bailey anxiously roared and turned around in the iron cage, but Ethan still didn't look back. However, when Ethan returned to the house where only one person lived, He recalled what happened during the day and instantly regretted it. The memory of Bailey could not be erased for a long time. So the next morning, Ethan rushed to the shelter and adopted Bailey again. After many years, Bailey sat in Ethan's passenger seat again and took a bath and had a new brand name. Although everything seemed to have returned to the past, Bailey could clearly feel the sadness hidden in Ethan's heart. At first, he didn't know how to help, but the next second, he thought of the familiar smell in the park. So, before it was completely light, he rushed to the park and was very lucky to see the white dog and its owner. Then he followed the man and the dog to a private villa. Sure enough, it smelled a stronger biscuit aroma here, and Hannah, who was emitting the aroma, also noticed it, and took the initiative to get close to it, and looked at Bailey, who refused to leave. Out of curiosity, Hannah squatted down to check the nameplate on Bailey's neck, and then a name buried deep in her heart suddenly appeared in her eyes, and past memories also emerged. In order to see her former lover again, Hannah drove Bailey back to the farm, but when Ethan saw Hannah through the window, he immediately hid in the room like a coward and refused to show up. No matter how Hannah knocked on the door, he didn't dare to respond, but Bailey knew he was inside, so he didn't. She kept yelling and scratching the door. Finally, Ethan had nowhere to escape, so he had to muster up the courage to face the woman he had let down. Although they were both a little uncomfortable, they pretended to be friends and asked about their experiences and changes over the years. It turned out that Ethan had been single for decades, never married, and had no children. Although Hannah had started a family, her husband unfortunately passed away a few years ago. Since her daughter had married back to this town, Hannah decided to move back a month ago. Ethan suddenly became excited after hearing this, because even after so many years, he still couldn't let go of Hannah completely. He was timid and didn't dare to grasp happiness before, but this time, he didn't want to miss it again, and Hannah also told him. Having the same feeling, the two naturally rekindled their relationship. After a wedding that was decades late, Bailey was very excited to see the lovers finally get married, but at the same time, he still had a wish that Ethan would recognize him. At first, he wanted to tell Ethan that he was back by wagging his tail in circles, but Ethan thought that every dog would do this, so he didn't take it seriously. Undeterred, Bailey continued to look for a way, and suddenly he found the football he had been playing with in the dilapidated warehouse, so he came to Ethan with the ball in his mouth. At first, Ethan thought Bailey just wanted to find someone to play with, but after throwing it a few times, he found that Bailey seemed to have greater expectations. Although he hadn't recognized Bailey yet, he suddenly remembered the exclusive ball-catching game he played with Bailey when they were young, so he tried to throw the football like before and then squatted on the ground. Bailey had been waiting for this moment, so he stepped on Ethan's back as he did before, then caught the ball accurately and landed steadily. Seeing this familiar scene, Ethan was stunned for a few seconds, and then he couldn't help but call out the name of the dog boss. Hearing the familiar call again, Bailey excitedly kept calling. Ethan couldn't believe his ears, but he still tentatively called out Bailey's name. At this moment, the two souls resonated, and the two old friends who had experienced life and death finally recognized each other again. A Dog's Purpose is directed by Lars Hallström. K starring Jay Appa and Dennis Quaid. A drama film released in 2017. Bailey was originally just an ordinary golden retriever, but after his death, he experienced 4 reincarnations with his previous memories. In the first life, he was a stray dog. After being accidentally rescued by Ethan, he accompanied Ethan through his scarred childhood and youth. In the second life, he was a brave police dog. While saving other people's lives, he healed his owner's lonely heart. In the third life, he was a short-legged cute corgi. With its cuteness and agility, it helped its introverted and unsocial owner find love and happiness. In the fourth life, it was adopted and then abandoned, but it was during the wandering process that it found its original but elderly owner Ethan with its memory. After living 4 lives and experiencing 4 different dog lives, Bailey felt that a dog's mission was to find some people who needed to be saved and then try his best to save them and love them with all his strength. Instead of feeling distressed and sad for bad things that have happened or have not happened, cherishing what you love and living in the present is the most appropriate attitude to life. Here is the drama and movie recap. Today's movie story ends here. Please like, comment, and forward. Thank you for watching patiently. Looking forward to meeting you next time.